quickly, just to add quickly to that, actually that's the part of what I mentioned, value added, that we have actually proposed that in sector-wide approaches, 10 to 20% of the funds in sector-wide approaches be allocated to CSOs, whether of the North and the South. And the reason for that is simple. While on one hand, there is a demand that international organizations like CARE should align and harmonize, on the other hand, precisely, you should harmonize and align, because that is where you make sure that rights-based approaches are implemented, that the needs of AIDS survivors, for example, are properly attended to, and so on. And it's only through international organizations and local CSOs that that's done. And so, in effect, you are creating a niche because of your value added by being rights-based, by making sure that the survivors are really empowered, and so on.
Great, thank you. So let's take up the mantle of how this is going to affect those that we're all here to learn from each other about how we can serve them better.
We know it will impact the operations. I was just like you, I was angered. I shared Stephen Louis' anger the other day when he was talking about his visit in Swaziland and etc. We do HIV programs in Cameroon, and when I last visited, and they have access now to ARVs in Yaoundé, but when I visited and came onto that child that the family cannot feed anymore, and he can eat only once a day, and maybe only a small bowl of rice, that's the only thing they have. That makes me so furious, because we've been fighting so hard back in 2001 here in this country to support the government of South Africa so that they could, in a lawsuit against the pharmaceutical industry, so that they could have access to ARV. And then the government of South Africa went on a very wrong way, but that's another story. So we've been fighting so hard, and now we see our results being compromised. So we'll have to adjust. We have to adjust. It will be tough. Some organizations will disappear. Ours will not, I believe, because of the excellence of our reputation and the quality of our brand and the quality of your work, and because we have faithful donors. Some NGOs will disappear anyway, large and small, because they won't be nimble enough to adjust to the crisis if the crisis lasts for too long. Some fake CBOs from the South will disappear as well. We know how many organizations were set up in many countries to benefit from the money that was coming from the donors, and we touched upon it this morning. So the market, our community, this market in which we operate will change. We will go through it, but we have to adjust our mode of operations. We know that our operating models are very expensive, and that will have to change if we want to go through the crisis. I think we will see mergers and acquisitions in our own network, in our own family. There are lots of NGOs. Why someday shouldn't there be one, Save the Children and CARE and WWF and Amnesty International together, merging, or in various forms. But there will be lots of cooperations amongst large and not so large NGOs. So the world will change. We'll go through it if we are fit enough and agile enough to react. But that's what I see. The last thing I see, coming back to the Japanese example, is that in every time we had a recession in France, the balance went, and they were asked to do more for the people who have not, for marginalized populations in our own country, those who have not access to our social safety nets. And there are many. And there are many. And most of the time, as you know, in all our countries, they come from Eastern Europe. They are women being trafficked. They are Romas, population who are migrating. They come from sub-Saharan Africa through Morocco, and they try to go in Spain and France and etc. And there will be demands from our own public and donors that we care for this, that we care. Go and do something for these people in our own communities. That is not what we're used to do. I don't know if this is our mandate, but that is a question, and a legitimate question, I believe, that we will have to address. That's the various trends I can see, and I know that our organization will have to discuss that and realign.
Just to follow up on the last thing you said, because this is how we actually, the world is coming to Norway and to many other countries. The world is not so simple anymore. And we have lots of problems in Norway also with trafficking and with people coming, having lots of problems in adjusting and getting, and many of the same problems that we are working with in their home countries, especially when it comes to women's empowerment and women's participation and things like that, are just as relevant for immigrant population living in Oslo, my country. So we have been approached by our ministries actually, and I've been asked, can't you do something for these people as well? Why do you have to go to Niger to talk about it? Why can't you just go and talk about it in Oslo? So we actually, in our strategic plan, we are trying to go in to see how can we develop this. So I think this is a very important trend that Philip is mentioning. But to look at, I mean, the broader picture, how will the economic crisis affect the people we want to help? I mean, there are many bad signs that are very scary. It could lead to less development assistance overall. It could lead to less income from export, less investments, and decrease in the remittances from people that are living abroad. And this could lead to, you know, less social services, unemployment. And I lived 4 years in Indonesia. And I came to Indonesia in 2004. And that was quite a lot of years after the economic crisis in 97, 98. And the society was still struggling very hard. And everybody was talking about it, how in just a few months, 10 million people were thrown into poverty because of the financial crisis. So this is something we really have to bear in mind, that this economic financial crisis could actually hit the people we are going to help very, very hard. And it's our job, I think, to get those stories and get those facts into the debates in our societies. Thank you.